say to them, well, should there be gradual change? And they will say yes, but gradual change under a principle that gradualism seems to be better, not recognizing that gradual change may not work if you're talking about holistic problems and so on. So anyway, those are the kinds of public value sets that people have, and they come to the fore. So why has, quote, support for healthcare reform declined? Now, by support, I'm talking about what the public opinion polls show. And they have shown that initially public supported it, and that now, if people are asked, even though they're whimsical notions, they say, okay, I'll oppose it. More people tend to oppose than support it. Well, most people simply don't have or don't want to take the time to follow all the details. And I say most people don't have it. We got so many things going on in our lives. How could we possibly follow all of the policy proposals being considered by Congress? Even healthcare. I mean, you know it either is going to affect you or it's not, and if it is, you're going to follow certain things. It's just too much. Survey respondents are forced to come up with an opinion even if they don't have one. When they do, they make decisions on the basis of the latest information they've heard, which could be bad or good, but, you know, whatever. And there's, of course, much misinformation. And, of course, probably the most important thing is that the parties have not agreed. Almost always you'll find support for public policies when Republicans and Democrats agree. But when they oppose each other, and when the news media are filled with these conflicts, then people say something must be wrong, they're not getting along together, you know, that kind of thing. So that's kind of, I think, what's going on with respect to health care. So what is a realistic view of public opinion on health insurance reform? First of all, most people think that some kind of health reform is needed. That if you just ask people whether they should be, most people say yes. They did in 1993, 94, when Clinton said it. They thought it was important. They also thought it could be gradual and then. They also thought that the parties ought to work together. These are just ongoing things. Most people aren't sure about what the current proposals will do, and they don't know that the CBO projects that the current proposals will reduce the budget deficit. In fact, probably the biggest single open-ended comment about why they don't support it is that it costs so much, without understanding, without finding, we don't even know if they understand what would happen if we don't do anything about health care, or, you know, will there be consequences or not. That's beyond it. Most people have, I would say, a permissive opinion about health care reform. They are not clamoring for health care reform, but they are also not saying that being implacably opposed. And thus it means it's up to the political leaders to decide. Here, let me give you an example of a poll that was done by Gallup, February 23rd. This was an attitude toward Congress passing a health care bill similar to the ones proposed by Obama and Democrats. Now, of course, notice the phrasing, similar to the ones. So that means we're not going to find out if you know what's in the proposal. We're just going to say, do you think we ought to pass it? And if you say favor or oppose, you get 45 to 48. But suppose you take only the people who say, I feel strongly that they should you should pass it, and I feel strongly that they should not. What would you come up with there? This is what you come up with. 67% of the public who have a moderate or essentially what I would call a permissive opinion about it. Now this is consistent with some other polling questions done by CBS when they asked them about whether or not, whether people were confused. Are you confused about the health care proposals? CBS found 57% who said they were confused. Other polls, they don't tend to do those very often, the major media polls. They don't tend to find out that people are confused. So you have to kind of read here and there. So what do we come up with? We come up with about a third of the public having strong opinions, about 2 to 1 opposed to what the health care bill is by the Democrats, and about 2/3 of the people who would say have a permissive opinion. That's what I think is a more realistic picture. And that's why the Democrats are going to press, and that's why the Republicans are going to press. I think Republicans actually have a better understanding of public opinion than the Democrats. For the Democrats seem to be really, they voted for the war, you know, because they thought everybody was going to do all the major presidential candidates in the Democratic side, who you might have expected to oppose the war, voted for the war if you're afraid that if they started running for president, they would be in a really serious situation if they didn't support the vote. In any case, regardless of which party better understands, I think that's the situation. And I think the reason Obama's going to go ahead is that he has a sense that if he passes it, people will view it more favorably. And that typically, by the way, is what we also know about public opinion. Once policies are passed and legitimized, then the public tends to accept them more, regardless of what party or kind of opinions we're talking about. Well, you may think that this is a liberal rant on behalf of healthcare. It is not. It is a very serious concern about what public opinion really is about a major policy proposal. So now I want to turn to cap and trade. Cap and trade is essentially, if you want to look at it from a partisan point of view, the opposite side. Here we get a lot of people in favor of cap and trade. A lot of the polls show people in favor of cap and trade, and I want to know how many people here feel that they could come up right now and explain to everybody what a cap and trade system is. I don't know, maybe this is a very select group, so could very well happen that you do. But the vast majority of people don't know what cap and trade is. They don't know so much about the reduction of emissions from greenhouse gases and so on. So, what I want to talk to you now about are some cap and trade questions that have been asked. Notice the issue here. That when Ipsos McClatchy talked about cap and trade, they can't just say, do you favor or oppose it? They know the public doesn't know anything about it. So what do? They give people information and then immediately ask for an opinion. The people that they give information to is a sample. It's supposed to represent the larger public. Once you give information to this sample, that means they no longer represent the public, which hasn't been given that information. So every poll that says, as you may know, is not a poll of what the American public's thinking. It's a poll with hypothetical results that might be true if the public were informed the same way the sample was. Do pollsters make that distinction? Absolutely not. I've never seen any major media pollster say, we have this hypothetical question here, and these are the results. As a matter of fact, when CNN did its cap and trade, which I'll show you later on, it has headlines, 6 in 10 support cap and trade. When Zodby did his, he said 3 in 10 support cap and trade. Well, we'll see why they come up with difference. Anyway, this is the kind of thing you have to listen to if you're going to be able to even know what the question is. A long old thing. Okay. Want me to read it? Probably not. I'm sure you've got it memorized by now. Basically, it's giving you some information. All right. Now, this is the Ipsos McClatchy poll. This was the basic, this right here, thank you. This was the basic question that they asked. Okay? Here's cap and trade, this is what it is. Would you support it or not? Then they followed up. Would you support it if your energy bill was going to go up by $10 a month? Then they said, suppose your energy bill would go up by $10 per month, but there would be green jobs created by this program. And then they went back and they said, suppose your energy bill was going to go up by $25, and then suppose it was going to go up by $25, but it would create jobs. Now what you see is this real fluctuation here. What you gather from this, and by the way, I think this is a useful exercise. I still would prefer if they would say, favor, oppose, or aren't you unsure? Look at the unsures. 7, 2, 2, 2, 4%. Could you really believe that, 93, 95, 98% of the public has an opinion upon cap and trade? I mean, give me a break. Of course not. People don't. We've got so many things going in our lives, I'm sure, that you're not going to knock on anybody's door and find them poring over the latest emissions, gas emissions, and cap and trade proposal so they know whether or not they should support it. Even people who are very well informed don't necessarily think that cap and trade is the best way to work, even if they want to restrict greenhouse emissions to prevent global warming. It's not necessarily a completely non-controversial option. And besides, when you talk about cap and trade, What are you talking? How much reduction will there be?